Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for joining our CSUF Study Abroad Pre-Departure Orientation. Happy Friday, happy May. I'm really thankful that all of you are here. There's a lot of important information we'll be covering today. And just to clarify, this pre-departure orientation is for CSUF students going on fall 26 and academic year 26, CSUF exchange, CSUIP, and non-CSUF study abroad programs. So I know there's been some confusion for CSUIP. They also have their pre-departure orientation today. So sorry, y'all, you're gonna have two orientations to go to today. We are covering completely different matters. So I do recommend that if you can, you go to both of them. For today's, if you're not able to stay for the entire thing, that is also okay. That's why we're recording. We will be emailing this out to you and also uploading it as an assessment on your CSUF study abroad application. So, oh, just what I said. So we are recording this session. Those of you that are here, just to clarify, so um, either by end of day or Monday, I will be uploading this to everyone's CSUF study abroad application, and it will show as a pre-departure assessment. So you will be asked, did you attend the live session on Friday, May 1st? If you select yes, since you're all here, you will all be selecting yes. That'll automatically make your response as NA, meaning that you won't be required to complete the assessment. But for the people that are going to be watching this recording, they would be answering no, and they'll have to watch the recording and complete a few assessment questions. So today's session, as our acceptance orientation was, it's very context heavy. Our slides have a lot of context on them. Again, for the purpose that I will be sharing the presentation with you so that you have all that information, all those resources so you could look back at. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're kind of low staffed today, so I don't have much capacity to be going back and forth in the chat. And then at the end, we are going to break out into country specific rooms. So that'll be another good place for you to ask each other questions, connect. We did have a low response for alumni, so we do have two alumni joining us. So I wish there were more, but it's still, again, being able to connect with each other will be very helpful. And you can also email us at sabroad@fullerton.edu with any other questions that you may come up after you review the slides or at the end of the presentation that we weren't able to get to. So this is our agenda for today. We have some announcements, some reminders. We're going to go over our pre-departure checklist info. This presentation or orientation is very heavy on like student conduct matters, learning more from other students' experiences through study abroad case studies, sharing with you additional resources. And at the very end, we'll have that opportunity to break out into country-specific rooms, and that'll also be another great place for all of you to connect. So before we get started with all the info, just a reminder that you are invited to next week's end of the semester celebration. Our theme is transitions in travel. So this is another great opportunity, like especially if you weren't able to make it to our meet and greet, come on out. We want to celebrate you. We've invited students that have recently returned from their study abroad program. There's international students that have been invited, and all of you who will be departing either in the summer or the fall or academic year have been invited as well. So please come on out. There's going to be light refreshments while supplies last. There's going to be some really cool journals while supplies last that would be really cool, I think, for you to take with you while you travel and invest in some reflection in those awesome journals we'll be handing out while supplies last. So it'll be next Wednesday, May 6th in PLN 120 from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Again, you don't have to stay for the whole event. It could be a drop-in, stay for a little bit, chat, and head back to your duties. So don't feel like you have to stay the whole 2 hours. And we have started recruiting for Instagram takeovers. So this semester, unfortunately, we weren't able to deliver those. So I'm really hoping that in the fall, we'll be able to bring them back. But you all have the opportunity to sign up to host a takeover where you will be given access to our official CSUF Abroad Instagram account. And we will give you specific guidelines on daily posts that you can share, and this is a great way just to motivate other students to study abroad. Take us on your journey. Our guidelines are very specific, but at the same time, very flexible. So, like one day you're covering your campus, your housing, another day you're taking us around like cultural experiences you've been a part of, and there's a lot more to it. But we're very open to like how you want to deliver this. Do you want to do a reel? Just post on the grid? Do you want to do a Q&A session for one of the days? And it's really one of the more popular things we do on our social media account, because students really are looking to hear from their peers to know just more about what it would be like if they did decide to take this wonderful step of going abroad. So please, if you are interested, go ahead and sign up. I will also send an email with the link to this form. And it's not required, it's completely optional. If you do sign up and you are selected, we will go ahead and send you further information with the guidelines, instructions, and all of that. So we also wanted to take this time to remind you that as a study abroad student, once you complete your program and you return, you will be eligible to be a Global Titan ambassador. So that's just something to keep in mind. Um, this will be an opportunity for you to be a dedicated volunteer with our office. So this could be anything from info sessions. That's like the main thing that our ambassadors do. So they're hosting those monthly info sessions, which is the main way we get to communicate with students interested in study abroad. So it's a pretty important role. You'll be representing study abroad in different capacities, tabling, attending events on campus, or even helping our team host our own events like the study abroad fairs, any other programming. You'll be involved in social media, so you'll be part of the team. I always say it that it's like the best way to just continue being involved in study abroad because when you come back, you're so excited and you want to continue sharing your stories. It happened to me when I went abroad, and eventually my family was kind of over it. So this is a great place just to have multiple spaces where you can continue sharing your story, your excitement with students that are interested in study abroad. And when that application becomes available, you will receive details via email. So some major advising updates. So just a reminder, our office is open year round. So we're here all summer. And I know that for this group, your programs aren't until fall. Um, but a lot is happening in the next few months, right? So there's going to be questions, you're going to need help. That's totally okay. Our office is still available for you. So unlike faculty, like we're still here during the summer. But the major update is that I'm actually going on leave as of June 29th, through fall 26. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of this so that you really are taking advantage of the advising opportunities that I'm offering while I'm here. Starting June 29th, if you have any questions, please make sure you're emailing to sabroad@fullerton.edu. So this account is our general account. It's going to be, it already is monitored regularly during business hours, business days. So this would be the ideal place to send any questions you have. Someone from our team will be uh, stepping in or just covering for me in certain capacities. So I would hate for you to email my account and I'm not here and then you're not getting a response, which you'll get my automated out of office reminder. But just a heads up, as of June 29th, I will be away through fall on maternity leave. So please email us abroad@fullerton.edu with any questions. And with that, um, the main purpose why I wanted to make everybody aware is so that you could really maximize my time here, where I do have quite a few advising options. So the first is in-person drop-in advising. I will be hosting those up till my last week here, which is planned for so June 24th will be the last drop-in advising I have for the Wednesdays in PLN 120. And these are 15-minute sessions drop in. You don't need an appointment, so it's a really good option if you just have a quick question, come on by. Just a heads up that sometimes it can be pretty busy and it could be a longer waiting time. So that's why I also have included these virtual drop-in advising hours. It's 2 days, but it's only for all of you here, only students accepted. Because I know that with the appointments, we're in a way like it's open for everybody. But these virtual drop-in advisings that I'm doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays are only for you, accepted students. So those of you that have been joining, it's been really helpful because we could share screens. We get straight to the point. It could be questions on anything, your host app, our application, and it's much easier, I think, to just log on to the Zoom link. Let me know what your question is, and boom, we'll figure it out, right? So take advantage of this while I'm here, up to my last day in the office. And then I'm still offering appointments online. So those are also another great option because it is a guaranteed 30-minute appointment with me. It just de depends on what my availability is, and you'll be able to see that on my booking link, which I included here. And my last week of advising will be June 22nd if everything goes as planned. So we're going to move on now to more of the pre-departure orientation content. Um, so one of as part of the CSUF study abroad application, there is a series of pre-departure assessment videos that we had you complete. So they were the travel assessment, technology and communications, safety and conduct, money matters, cultural adjustment. So all of those videos, we asked that you completed those. Um, by today, just because there's so much to cover in these next, what, hour and a half, that we won't be going into those topics. Instead, today's session is going to be on insurance and emergencies, health and safety, financial aid, academics. So that's why I wanted to make sure you had covered that information. In case any questions you may have, we could talk about them at the end. So you might be wondering, like, we already had an orientation, which I feel like it feels like it was yesterday, but no, it was a while back, right? So that was our acceptance orientation. And now this is our pre-departure orientation. So in today's session, what we're mainly talking about is what to expect right now that you're either submitted your host application or you're close to submitting it. What is going to happen now in terms of CSUIP campus processing now that you've fully committed to your program, and things that you need to know while you're abroad. Okay. So this is our timeline that we had also reviewed when we last met for our acceptance orientation. Um, and where most of you are somewhere here. So submitted host application for CSUF Exchange and CSUIP. This might not apply for non-CSUF programs, but the majority of you are somewhere here. Reminder that, yeah, you could already start planning for your visa, but a lot of those documents you're going to need for your actual visa appointments are going to come until you've officially received your acceptance letters, information docs from your host university. So usually that's when once you get your visa and everything's good to go, that's usually where you would take that next step to book your flight. But I also understand that there's been some scenarios where in order to go to your visa appointment, you need to have proof of your flight purchase. So please uh, just look into whatever your visa requirements are. We no longer require a pre-departure advising appointment. So this will be um, optional, right? I do get a lot of students that make an appointment with me just to make sure everything's ready to go, especially since I'll be on leave if this is something you want to do again, take advantage of those advising options I'm offering. And then our office is actively working on binding your insurance for CSUF exchange and non-CSUF. We'll talk more about insurance later. Um, and we'll talk more about this placeholder course, financial aid, but also there's another orientation on this timeline, right? So this orientation is referring to the orientation at your program. So once you get to your host country, they'll most likely have their own version of an orientation, which is also usually like your program start date. And then your program starts. So I know there's still a lot that has to happen, and you still have quite some time. So it also, I think, catches people off guard when we have our pre-departure orientation in May, but also the semester's coming to an end, and we need to plan accordingly. Okay, so a pre-departure checklist review. So individual questions on visas, accommodations, flights, all of those, they can be addressed at orientation in the breakout rooms in advising, just because those are also very specific, right, to your programs. Just a reminder that a lot of the information we're covering today is also embedded in your CSUF study abroad application. So a lot of those electronic signature items have this information. So you can always go back and look at those if you need a refresher, a reminder, and you'll even have access to your CSUF study abroad application while you're abroad. So I know there was some confusion, and my apologies. Um, I initially had said all of your application on the CSUF portal is due by today. And to clarify, I think I sent an email earlier this week. What we really needed you to complete were those pre-departure assessments. I completely understand that there's a lot of that information we're asking for. You don't have it yet. So, like I said in my email earlier this week, don't upload a blank file, a placeholder file, if you don't have your flight itinerary yet. It's okay to leave it incomplete. Don't put TBDs if you don't have program start dates yet. You probably don't have that information yet, right? So let's go ahead and leave those application items incomplete until you actually have the information. So please make sure you're completing everything prior to departure. And our team will be periodically doing some application audits, maybe sending you some reminders to complete everything before your departure date. And also in the meantime, like you've seen, our application system is sending you automated reminders for anything that's incomplete. So you'll still keep getting those emails. So I just wanted to put it out there. It's we rather you leave those items incomplete until you have the actual correct information rather than inputting blank files or um, incorrect dates, incorrect information. So moving on to emergency contact info, we ask that you save this number in your phone. This is like our 24/7 line. So if you have an emergency where, let's see, like if you are not able to get access to your host program contacts, the local emergency contacts at your host country, if you find yourself in a situation where, you've tried contacting like immediate emergency contacts and you're not getting assistance, this is the number you would call. It's a 24/7 line, so please make sure you save that. Ideally, most students will have um, downloaded WhatsApp in order to be able to use this while abroad. But one new resource that we're using this cycle is going to be the Alert Traveler app. So we'll be emailing you more instructions, but in general, through this Alert Traveler program, you will be required to download an app on your phone. And this is something that I understand, like we can't enforce it, right? We're not going to go checking your phones to make sure you've downloaded the app, but we strongly, strongly, strongly encourage that you do, because this is going to be our brand new emergency plan communications app. So, for example, if anything were to happen while you're abroad, this is going to be a place where we could check in with everybody in that country, in that region. If you ever find yourself in an emergency too, this will also be another easy way where I believe like at the tap of a button, you're able to reach out to the team here at CSUF Risk Management. So more information will be given to you via email on how to download the app. But reminder, like this is for safety matters. So we've already gotten some feedback of like, oh, dreading to have to download another app and having to, one of the settings I believe is like location. It's not that we're tracking exactly where you are. It's more of like the region where you're at in case something were to happen. We could see, is the student safe? Are they in danger? So more details will be given to you via email, just a heads up. But it is something new that we're implementing. So we also appreciate your patience as we navigate this new program. We're still, though, requiring that you enroll in the STEP program. So, another example of something that we can't do on your behalf, can't verify you've done it, but it is another great program that we highly recommend you sign up for. It's a free service to allow US citizens and nationals traveling and living abroad to enroll with the nearest US embassy and or consulate. Um, I know that once you register through this, you have the option to also get updates if anything is going on in your region, in your area. So we require that you do this. It is something you have to do yourself. So you have the link to it in your CSUF study abroad application, and you will also have it linked here on the slides once we share it with you. Duo, I feel like this slide is a little bit outdated, but I keep it because every semester there's at least one student. So I'd rather try to catch you all here now. If you haven't installed the Duo app on your phones, electronic devices, I highly recommend you do. Because while you're abroad, if you are abroad for a single semester, you'll be enrolling in CSUF courses for the following semester while you're abroad. So you really want to make sure that you have access to your CSUF Titan portal. Um, so please make sure that you have all this set up before you go. But I feel like majority of students have already done this, but surprisingly, I always get at least one student every cycle that hasn't. Okay, so we're gonna move on to academics. Um, so there's quite a bit here. So reminder to please clear any holds you have. Um, And we're not directly connected with these holds. So if you do have a hold, please take a look at your portal to see what it's for and how you could fix that. If we run into any issues at the time of enrolling you in the placeholder course, we'll let you know too. It sometimes happens that registration and records will let me know, like, hey, we can't code the student in the placeholder course because they have a code, a hold. So we'll reach out to you. A few weeks ago, I also sent an email reminder that you should be enrolling in fall 26 CSUF courses. Um, like we talked about at the acceptance orientation, this is more of a safety matter in case for whatever reason you have to cancel your program, you can't go abroad, then at least we have a backup plan so that you can continue your studies here at Cal State Fullerton. So that's why I say try your best to enroll in what would be your ideal fall 26 schedule here at Cal State Fullerton. For non-CSUF, for students participating on non-CSUF programs, it's your call. But for CSUF Exchange, CSUIP, strongly recommend you do this. Um, and sometime in June, our office will notify registration and records to drop you from those courses because ideally, hopefully by June, we have a confirmation that everybody's good to go, no concerns, so we can go ahead and proceed with dropping you from CSUF Fall 26 courses. Because at that time, registration and records will be coding you in this study abroad placeholder course. So, reminder, we talked about this in the acceptance orientation, but what this placeholder course does is it indicates in the CSUF system that you remain an active Cal State Fullerton student, just that you're studying abroad. For those of you doing CSUIP and CSUF exchange, it's also indicating that you're enrolled in full-time status so that when you do have to pay CSUF insurance, you're being charged, uh, CSUF tuition, you're being charged for full-time status. So that is how we make sure that you may remain active in the system, that tuition charges are coming through as usual for CSUIP and CSUF exchange. And I will give you a heads up before this is done. So I usually send like a last call, hey, by this date, you will be dropped from fall 26 courses. If you are having any issues or have any like second thoughts about not doing your program, now's the time to let me know so that we make sure not to drop you from CSUF courses. So I'll send everybody an email reminder with that. And I will also be sending an email today for those of you that may be interested in keeping enrollment in a CSUF online async course. We also mentioned this in the acceptance orientation. It's not something we highly promote because, as you can see, you're able to take one CSUF asynchronous course, but this is in addition to the 12 or 15 units that you're already going to be taking abroad. So it can add up, right? Um, it is an option, but when you do fill out that form, we do list like things to consider. For example, if you're committing to keeping one CSUF online course, making sure that you're on top of deadlines, requirements, any virtual class meetings. Um, Again, in addition to everything you're going to be doing abroad. So, also making sure that you're on top of any like drop deadlines here at Cal State Fullerton, because if you decide to change your mind, oh, I don't want to do this online class at CSUF anymore, and it's past the drop deadline here at Cal State Fullerton, we have to abide by those policies. So it does work for some for students, but I will be very transparent that it is another task you're taking on in addition to everything else you're already tackling with study abroad. So if it is something you want to do, I will be sending out the form to everybody via email, where you should have already enrolled in the class, or if you haven't had your registration appointment yet, you will be doing that. But on this form, you're letting me know which online course you want to keep enrollment in. Um, you only have to submit this form if you want to keep enrollment in an online course at Cal State Fullerton. No submission of form tells me that you don't need to keep enrollment in a CSUF online course. So no, you'll be dropped from any fall 26 courses later in June. So more on academics, reminder that you must stay enrolled in the minimum number of units required for your program. So for CSUIP students, that's 15 units. For CSUF exchange, that's 12 units. And for non-CSUF programs, we also encourage the 12 unit. All of your classes that you complete abroad must be reported to Cal State Fullerton, whether you need the units or not, whether you pass the class or not. Unfortunately, sometimes students assume that they can pick and choose what comes back on their record here at Cal State Fullerton. That's not the case. We are required to report everything back to CSUF registration and records. You are discouraged from taking courses abroad as credit, no credit, or pass and fail. So we do require that you're taking courses for a letter grade. And please note that it can take some time for us to receive your transcripts once you complete your programs. So this is the reason why we don't recommend that you study abroad your last semester, because it can take anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 months after your program completion for us to receive that transcript. For academic year students, especially CSUIP, they'll most likely be sending they only send transcripts at the end of your academic year program. So we won't receive a fall semester program and then a transcript and then a spring one. I know CSUIP is pretty strict on only sending one transcript at the end of the academic year program. So very important to keep in mind that it will take some time for your CSUF uh, record to be updated just because of how long it can take our partners abroad to send us your transcript. And we wish it was faster, but it is completely up to the processing times of our partners abroad. And I know a lot of students have been actively working on these transfer credit approval forms. Great job. There is no hard deadline for you to submit this. So even if while you're abroad, you decide that you enrolled in a class that you hadn't requested approvals for, you'll still have access to this and you'll still be able to request approvals while you're abroad because you could do this virtual via email. And if you do get an approval, just a reminder to please, please, please upload it on the CSUF study abroad application under the questionnaire titled Upload Approved Transfer Credit Approval Forms. Very important that you do this because once we get your official transcript at the end of your program, we will go into this questionnaire to see if you uploaded any approvals. And if you did, then we'll make sure to report those to CSUF registration and records. If we don't see anything, then by default, all the units you earned abroad, depending on your program, right? So like IP, they'll come back as resident elective units, exchange, transfer elective units, non-CSUF, also transfer elective units. So if we don't see an approval uploaded here, then that lets us know that you just are okay with the elective units. So please make sure you're uploading the approvals here. So with that, some reminders, final reminders on academics is that all course credit earned abroad must be reported to CSUF registration and records upon your program completion. Um, I've already had some questions come up with this where oh, well, I don't really need this course. Am I going to need to report it? Yes, we do need to report any credit earned abroad back to CSUF registration and records. You can't pick and choose which grades will show on your TDA and CSUF transcript. It's happened before where unfortunately a student gets a lower grade and they inquire if we could just not report that to Cal State Fullerton registration and records. The answer is no, we have to report everything that we see on your official transcript must be reported back to CSUF registration and records. So yes, that means that the coursework you're completing abroad will be applied towards your GPA. It will be on your record. So very important to prioritize the study and study abroad. So you are expected to be attending all your courses abroad, just like you are expected to do it here, right? Um, even if it's a course that you weren't able to obtain transfer credit approval for, it's still a course that you enrolled in and you still have to meet requirements, as in like you still have to go to class, you still have to complete assignments because you will be uh, getting a grade at the end of that. So please make sure you're going to class, prioritizing the study and study abroad. I know a lot of adventure fun comes with study abroad, but at the end of the day, the main purpose of this is the academics that comes with it, right? So we want to make sure that your semester abroad is not negatively impacting your CSUF academic career. Okay, so that's it for academics. The next section is on financial aid. So there shouldn't be much change to your financial aid processing just because you're studying abroad. So our office will be providing program budgets to financial aid so that they can take into consideration all of your program related expenses. Um, if you do not receive financial aid, you are paying everything just as you normally would. Our office will inform financial aid, though, for those of you that do get financial aid, that you are studying abroad. We'll let them know about your program budget. If you are receiving any outside scholarships, you must inform our office so that we can report that to the scholarships office here at Cal State Fullerton. And the only thing that you have to do is please, please, please make sure that you have direct deposit set up. So when you're abroad, unfortunately, if you don't have direct deposit set up, a check is going to be sent to your house, and it's going to be really hard for that money to be sent to you just because of access and FERPA and all of that, right? So we want to make sure that before we go abroad, we have direct deposit set up so that you're getting that money while you're abroad. Not required, but we do recommend that if you want to designate someone to communicate with financial aid on your behalf, I believe there's a form that you could complete with financial aid for that person to have access to that. And have a cushion or buffer of funds available to hold you over while you are waiting to receive your financial aid funds. Um, so we'll talk a little bit more about when disbursement happens, right? But it doesn't happen immediately. Um, and prior to departing, we also recommend that you prepare about $200 in your country's currency to have on you when you arrive. So that is something that is heavily discussed in the pre-departure assessment on money matters. Um, but just making sure, right, that you have a plan in the meantime when while financial aid disperses funds to you. So, when will financial aid be dispersed? So, if your official classes, so not including some programs have that intro language course, so it doesn't include that, but if your official classes start before CSUIP classes, your financial aid will be dispersed around the same time as everybody else's, which is about 10 days prior to the start of the semester. Keep in mind that that middle class scholarship is dispersed in two parts. So that was a common question I got my first time doing study abroad advising, like, where is my middle class scholarship? I only got half of it. And I learned that middle class scholarship, they disperse one half at the start and the second half in the middle of the semester. So again, something to plan for, right? And if your official classes, not including the intro language courses for some programs, if they start after Cal State Fullerton's start date, your financial aid will be dispersed 10 days prior to the start of your semester. So make sure you're planning for these disbursement timelines. So once financial aid releases your funds, for those of you doing CSUIP and CSUF exchange, your CSUF tuition and fees will be collected from financial aid funds as normally is. So what this means is if you normally use financial aid to cover some of your tuition costs, that'll be applied as usual. If you are a non-CSUF student, your aid funds will go directly to you. So, reminder, non-CSUF study abroad programs, you can only use federal aid. So, um, please make sure you're chatting with the financial aid office to understand what that means for you in terms of like if you're using federal loans, disbursement for that. Please talk to the financial aid office about that. But reminder, you can only use federal aid for non-CSUF study abroad programs. And bank and availability. So once the funds are verified by your bank, it will be made available to you. So we already talked about this. Yeah. So we haven't had students whose financial aid awards have been changed because of their study abroad budgets, but if you have any specific questions about your specific financial aid packages and how they're going to be applied to your study abroad, please email me directly. Um, even while you're abroad. So say like it's been more than 10 days and you still haven't received disbursement of your funds, email our office. So email sabroad@fullerton.edu and we'll inquire directly with our contact that's very knowledgeable on how financial aid works with study abroad. A lot of times students try going directly to financial aid and unfortunately, not everyone in financial aid is trained on how it applies to study abroad, and it just creates way more confusion. So if you find yourself in a position where you're abroad, it's been a while, no disbursement, or you have any other questions specifically to your financial aid while you're abroad, it'll be much more straightforward if you email us directly, and then we connect you with our contacts there for study abroad financial aid. So that's it on financial aid. Um, these next few slides are covering international travel insurance. I know there's been a lot of questions on that. Um, So again, reminder, CSUF exchange and non-CSUF study abroad programs, Cal State Fullerton Risk Management will be providing your travel health insurance to you at no additional cost for the duration of your program. I know CSUF exchange programs, a lot of you sometimes need travel health, proof of travel health insurance. So we will also be providing you with letters for that. Um, Here is the breakdown, right? So CSUIP students, you're paying for your travel insurance through CSUIP, and CSUIP will be handling the travel insurance for you. So they have their orientation later today, so I'm sure that'll be one of the topics they talk about. CSUF exchange and non-CSUF student programs. Travel insurance for you is covered by CSUF, and our office will be reaching out to you with the insurance card, insurance letter. Within your CSUF study abroad application, you also have a guide on how to use the insurance. Non-CSUF students, you will also receive insurance from the CSUF risk management at no additional cost, but it is also very common for your providers to also require their insurance coverage. So this just means you'll be double covered, which is okay. Here at Cal State Fullerton, we always say that the CSUF travel insurance is should be your first insurance that you reach out to if you ever find yourself needing to obtain medical assistance or so. So, for CSUF exchange students and non-CSUF study abroad, this information will be emailed to you. It'll also be uploaded to your CSUF study abroad application. This is kind of blurry here, but this is what the insurance card looks like. So you won't get a physical like ID card in the mail. It's going to be a PDF document. Um, and we highly recommend that you save this document in your files, in your phone, even have a printed copy with you if you can, in case you ever need to use it. And I also wanted to we talk a lot about it in the assessment video, but just a reminder that this is travel health insurance. So sometimes students confuse it with like travel insurance, as in like, oh, if my luggage gets lost, if my flight gets delayed, if my flight gets canceled, that's completely separate, and that would be something you tag on yourself when you're reserving your flights. This is only for health purposes. Um, yeah. So traveling on illness, another topic that was covered in one of your pre-departure assessment videos, but we just wanted to remind everybody that we highly encourage that you look into these resources to find out more about any potential like risk or requirements for the countries you're going to. We're not health experts, so we can't specifically say, oh, you need this vaccine, that vaccine, or so please go ahead and look at these amazing resources available to you. Um, One common thing is we always recommend you take some supplies of medication that you may need, um, like over-the-counter medications. In case you get sick, you have more of that familiar medication to go to. But if you do need to take prescription medication, please make sure you're looking at the legal requirements by your host country. And if there's any restrictions, right, making sure you're aware of what those are, making sure you're traveling with a prescription document, and if really planning in advance if there's anything you will need to request for an alternative prior to your trip. We also wanted to remind you that as part of your CSUF study abroad application, you do have access to this really cool resource called Your Mental Health Travels Too. So it's a really awesome resource where one of our ambassadors put together a lot of helpful resources to help you navigate this process, right? A lot of changes, transitions happening in when you study abroad. So there's a lot of tips, things you could do while you're abroad, resources you could access while you're abroad, but also we want to put it out there that if you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to talk to someone, even though you're studying abroad, you still have access to CAPS here on campus. And if you were in a position where you needed this service, all you have to do is email us at sabroad@fullerton.edu, and we will work directly with you to make sure that you get seen by the CAPS team. They've been super flexible. They've been very respectful of like the time differences that our students might find themselves in. So please know that this is a service you will still have access to while you're abroad. So with that, we're going to move on to student conduct and safety. Um, so a lot of the material that's going to be covered in the next few slides is material that you were expected to have read through and use electronically signed on your CSUF study abroad application. So really what we're trying to say here is that, CSUF is invested in making sure that, yes, you have a quality experience abroad, but also that you have a safe experience abroad. So the purpose of the information in this orientation and in your student application is to inform students about their responsibilities to uphold CSUF and CSU policies related to student conduct while participating in your programs. So it's not that we're like scolding you or expecting the worst, but just a reminder that when you study abroad, um, you remain a CSUF student, right? So you still have to abide by the CSUF student conduct that you also signed off on. There's the release of liability you signed off on. I won't read through all of this because you have it in your application. You'll have it on the slide. But please keep in mind that all of these things still apply to you while you're abroad. Um, and there are still consequences for your actions. So using possession or distribution of alcohol and or facilitating the use, possession, or distribution of alcohol by any underage individual. Um, I guess I will expand a little bit more on this because alcohol is a topic that does come up a lot in the CSUF study abroad culture. It's naturally, right, part of the experience, and we would hate for you to have a negative experience because of not keeping in mind, right, that there's consequences. It can definitely like interfere with your program, the quality of your program, your experience. Another important thing to keep in mind is the user possession or distribution of any illegal or illicit drugs. Um, so I think another common thing here too, right, is keeping in mind that laws in the host country you're at are going to be very different than what we're used to here, right? So one of the common ones that we talk about a lot in study abroad, especially here in California, is like the use of marijuana, where here very flexible, right? But if you go abroad, it's completely the opposite. So we don't want you to find yourself in that situation where it's the extreme and now you're in trouble and we just assumed, right, that, oh, the same rules apply. So no, be aware of the rules in your host country. Um, Sexual assault is defined as the implied use of or threatened use of force to engage in any sexual activity against another person's will. Behavior that threatens the emotional or physical well-being and or safety of participants, including but not limited to any form of fighting. So yes, all of these rules also apply when you're just I think it's interesting because like the same rules that apply here at Cal State Fullerton also apply to you while you're abroad. Um, Unauthorized use of any fire safety equipment, including the activation of alarms or extinguishers without immediate cause, and possession of any weapons. So you're still a CSUF student, and your student conduct still applies while you're abroad. But also safety, right? Priority. Um, you also signed off on this part, student conduct and safety expectations. Um, it's more related to what do we see here? Um, Not permitting others to participate on the program, abiding by local laws, adhering to the itinerary and directions provided to you by your host, adherence of curfews. So all of this applies while you're abroad. And with that, we're going to move on to student conduct and safety, but more on social media etiquette. So this is also something that comes up a lot with study abroad, but when you are abroad, we totally understand, right, the excitement and just this is part of our culture now, sharing it on social media. But we do want to remind you of the safety that you want to keep in mind. So please exercise caution when you're posting the faces of identities of others. Always ask, right, for permission. Do not photograph minors. Ask for permission when you're taking a picture of another person. Let them know, right, what the purpose of this photo will be. It's something we also cover in the guidelines for the takeovers. So any of you doing the takeovers, very important to if somebody, if you do photograph, for example, like your buddy in your host program, let them know, like, hey, can I use this picture for my Instagram takeover? This is what it'll be used for. This is who will be seeing it. So be open about that. Think about the what. You're not only representing CSUF study abroad, but you're also representing Cal State Fullerton. So please ensure that the content you're putting out there is suitable. For example, we advise that you refrain from posting content that showcases excessive alcohol consumption. Um, yeah, so I feel like this is something we should always practice, but especially when you're studying abroad, just know that our CSUF official accounts are also have become even way more interested in our social media platform. So make sure you're keeping it professional. Think about the why. So remember the study and study abroad in every social media post. So uh, be in the moment, right? Take all the photos you like, but worry about posting later. It takes away from the experience. But I especially like those of you going abroad for a semester, whole year, like you're going to be so busy, you have so much time, but it's important to be thoughtful of these things. And think about the where. So be cautious of location tagging. So this is something that I honestly hadn't thought about, but our colleague Ketley brought it up and it makes so much sense. Like when you're studying abroad, I know like it's so tempting to like in the moment want to post it, want to tag the location where you're at. But we recommend you try not to post locations while you're still there, just because it is unfortunately a horrible thing where there's people stalking, oh, this person is currently at this location. So the more that you can not let the world know exactly where you are at that specific time, the better, right? So if you want to post it at a later time where you're not at that location anymore, that'll be the more safe way to go about it. So, student conduct and safety, possible consequences or violations. CSUF disciplinary action. So our team is in constant communication with risk management, and just because you're abroad doesn't mean that you're not required to comply with CSUF conduct. So you still have to comply with all of that, and there could be disciplinary actions if anything comes up. Expulsion from the program. So unfortunately, that is also another consequence that could happen depending, right, on what happens. But the severity of the situation, and that would be horrible. All this work you put into this experience, time, financials, commitment, right? Your program could end early depending on the matter. Legal consequences. So, again, scenarios where students have unfortunately found themselves in situations with the law at their host country, and there's very little that we could do to step in because at that point it's completely up to the legal system of your host country. Financial loss. So, for example, if you have to leave early from your program because you've been removed from your program, having to book a return flight, having to pay an extra fee to change your return flight. Um, One of those financial losses that is kind of not as a parent is, I think, one associated with alcohol consumption, right? So, unfortunately, a lot of times students get into this mindset of like, our previous director used to call it something like the Disneyland mindset, where you feel like, oh, nothing's gonna happen to me here. It's like fantasy land, and then you realize, oh, I spent so much money on going out and partying and alcohol, and so now I have to really plan out to budget my meals, or I can't do this one excursion because I don't have the funding anymore. And I think the most important is risk to health and safety, right? So really all of this just goes to say that we want you to be safe abroad. We want you to be healthy. We try our best to give you all the resources available so that while you're abroad, you can reach out to us. You have the tools, but also it really depends on your decisions, your actions, right? So making sure that I think, again, going back to like a lot of what we practice here when we go out, going out in groups, being safe. Same thing applies when you're abroad. So we want to make sure we're still practicing all of that. Okay, so coming to an end on the student conduct stuff. So before you leave, you want to reflect. What do you want to gain from this experience, right? We would hate for everything to go to waste because of one incident where we didn't think it through. What do you want to learn? But also be open to learning from things you didn't always expect to happen. So with study abroad, there's so much change. There's so much, it really does require you to be flexible, adaptable. And let's start. And you're already experiencing that through the host application process, through the first application step. Um, Learning from those experiences rather than seeing them as like obstacles and challenges. Okay, so the last part of this is going to be a few case studies. Um, and again, not trying to like be like the bad cop or scold anyone here, but I really value these case studies because it really does prepare you in a way like some of these are unusual and you're like, what? That would never happen. But these unfortunately have happened to CSUF students. So we're giving you this opportunity to learn from their experiences. So I've been talking a lot, so I'm hoping that with the case studies you can be a little bit more engaged. There will be a few questions connected to the case studies. So if you want to join the menti.com here on the screen, and that way you can participate as well. Okay, I think we're gonna get started. Okay, so this first scenario is on visa and immigration. So you're arriving at the airport of your host country and about to go through customs and immigration. You give the immigration officer your passport, but the officer says you do not have a visa to enter the country. You explain to the immigration officer that you read online that a visa could be received upon arrival to the country. The immigration officer explains that this isn't the case for you, denies you entry to the host country, and you must return back to the US. Okay, so we just had a quick question here. What should they have done before departure to prevent this? Any thoughts? Should they have showed up and explained their situation to to immigration? They'll understand. Confirm entry requirements for their nationality. Assume that visa on arrival applies to all travelers, or rely on a travel blog that said no visa was needed. Perfect. Let's see. So, what are some possible themes? Ah, sorry. So what happened here was that, yes, the student had to go back home and like a lot of you mentioned here, confirm what they should have done was confirm entry requirements for their specific nationality. So, um, this is, I think, one of the things that makes me nervous, like when we create the discords and all that everybody's talking to each other, perhaps about visa processing, but we can't assume that my visa requirement is going to be the same as my classmates because maybe, I have a Mexican passport, and visa requirements for a Mexican passport are different than a US citizen passport. So this is what we mean by you need to confirm that what your requirements are for your specific nationality. So make sure you're reading carefully through your host country's consulate website to see what that specific process is. And that's unfortunately what happened with the student. They were talking to other people on their program, and oh, the what they were told was, oh, we don't need to get a visa in advance. We get it upon entry, but they didn't have a US citizen passport. So their requirements were different. And that's why they weren't able to enter the country. And unfortunately, in that scenario, our office can't do anything because it is a requirement from Immigration and Customs for that host country. And unfortunately, the student did have to come back home and they had to cancel their program. They wouldn't have been able to obtain a visa in time to start the program, the semester abroad. So we'll go ahead and skip this slide. Oh, I forgot the order of these. And then okay, and then there was another scenario too. Where a student was advised by their program's arrival instructions that they needed to obtain a visa prior to entry, but the student read somewhere online that they could just get the visa upon arrival. And I believe what they read was a blog. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't an official source. So both of these students did have to be removed from their program. So I think another thing with like AI now, right, making sure that the resources you're referring to are credible, are accurate. So that's why we always recommend you go to uh, the uh, the host country's official consulate website. So this next case study is the topic is discrimination. So you have been in your host country and on your program for several weeks. You have been noticing that your interactions with locals and even other study abroad students are not what you expected. You get the strong feeling that you are being discriminated against, sometimes harassed, and it's affecting your ability to enjoy your study abroad experience. So what should this, oh, if you, if the student in this situation, what is something that they should have done? Should they have kept this to themselves? Everyone deals with tough situations abroad. Or should they reach out to their on-site program staff coordinator or the study abroad team here at Cal State Fullerton? Should they confront those they believe are discriminating against them or book a flight home as soon as possible? Great. Yeah. So reach out to their on-site program staff coordinator or SAGE team. Um, what actually happened is that this student was participating in a study abroad program that it included students studying abroad from other colleges and universities, which is actually very, very common for most of these programs. The student had traveled uh, and studied abroad before, so they consider themselves like very experienced, right? And this program was in a non-traditional study abroad location. Um, but early on in the program, the student didn't feel safe anymore, and the academics of the program turned out not to be a good fit. So the student did end up withdrawing from the rest of the program and returned to the US. So, with this example, what we want to communicate to you is that we will never force you to stay abroad. If you're not feeling safe, if you've really tried, all possibilities to to adapt, to be flexible, and it's still not working out, like all of the majority of you responded, please reach out to us. Please reach out to the team on site. You'll have access to the equivalent of the study abroad office at your campuses. Those of you doing non-CSUF study abroad programs, there's a whole team dedicated to support your program. Reach out to them, reach out to us. Like we said, we could also connect you with CAPS. But if you decide, you know what, this is not for me, let's chat, let's talk about a plan to get you back home. We would never want to force anybody to stay abroad. It's a huge commitment if it's not working out. In terms of like finances, academics, we'll chat about that with you to come up with a plan. We'll see how early is it in the semester. Are we able to get you in classes here? But again, just know that we would never force you to stay abroad if you're not feeling comfortable while you're abroad. And this is more than like the natural homesickness that comes with it, right? Like, yes, like that's part of the experience and it comes and goes and but you're still able to like fully participate in your program. You're still able, you might have like a low day, but then the next day it's great. But this example here, the student in a way even sometimes like risked their or feared for their safety. It was affecting their academics. It was really just not working out. So if you ever find yourself in that situation, please reach out to us and we'll come up with a plan. Okay, this next one is on conduct. So your accommodations are with a local host family. One evening after dinner, you go out to explore the city's nightlife, but lose track of time. It's late and your host family is worried. On your way home, you were intoxicated and mistakenly tried to enter the wrong house, which led the residents of that house to call the police, and you are detained. So this next question, oh, where's my question? Oh, there it is. Okay. What could have helped the student avoid this situation? So they shouldn't have gone out at all while studying abroad. That's very realistic. They should assume locals will understand mistakes by foreigners, carry a note saying you're a student if stopped by police, or they shouldn't have gone out alone and avoided getting intoxicated. Yay. So we can't assume that foreigners will understand I mean, sorry, we can't assume that locals will understand foreigners' mistakes, right? If anything, I feel like there might be less leeway with that. So not gone out alone and avoided getting intoxicated, which again goes back to my previous comments of these are also things we practice when we go out here, right? We go out in groups, and if we do go out alone, we try not to get intoxicated. So these are all like safety measures that you should still take, especially when you're abroad, just because you're in a completely new environment, not as aware of your surroundings or familiar of your surroundings, right? So um, all of this still applies. What actually happened here is that, yes, the student was detained by local authorities, and it took the host family a few hours to locate them. So the university contacted Cal State Fullerton team after quite some time, until they were able to even be aware of what was going on, and legal help was involved. The student was actually held, they were detained for several days. And during that time, CSUF had we weren't able to have communication with them. The host university was doing what they could, but also with very limited possibilities because at this time it was really up to the legal system of the host country. Um, the student was detained until it was decided whether or not charges would be pressed. And fortunately, the family chose not to press charges and the student was released safely. So, yes, an extreme scenario. Um, but again, just goes to show, right, that these things can happen. Our team, the host university team, will try our best to do what we can. But there's really going to be times, like we talked about in the pre-assessment video, where um, a lot, like, there's things that are out of our control. And this was scary. This was scary. Um, but going back to the safety, right? How you shouldn't be going out by yourself. You really want to make sure that if you are consuming alcohol, you're still aware of your surroundings. You're in a new environment. So please try to not go out on your act. And we our last one is on academics. Oh, let's see. Connection is unstable. Okay, there we are. So, a student completed a semester-long study abroad program, enrolling in 12 units at their host university. When the study abroad office received the transcript, all the courses showed failed grades. Upon following up, the student explained that because none of their courses had been approved for transfer credit, they chose not to attend classes and instead spent the semester traveling and experiencing the local culture. So, what steps could the student have taken to avoid this outcome? Should they have asked the study abroad advisor or any advisor at their host program for help with course approvals, attend classes while working on approvals, skip classes and focus on travel, accepting the academic risk, or still attend class because the grades would affect their CSUF GPA? Yes. So, like a lot of you have already been doing, reaching out to me, asking for some guidance on like who do I contact? This is the status of my approval. Great. Yes, you should still attend classes, even if you don't have a course approval for that class. It's still going to count for elective units. It's still going to count towards your um, GPA. And yes, still attend classes because the grade will have to be reported back to CSUF. You can't just pick and choose, right? And skip you yeah, so you shouldn't be skipping classes because just like you're at Cal State Fullerton, you have to go to classes. So the same rules apply while you're abroad. I totally get it. You want to travel. You will have weekends, you will have breaks. That's when that can be done. But please make sure you're prioritizing your academics. So going to class. Um, what actually happened with the student? Um, we reached out to them just like, hey, just making sure, like, what is this? What happened? Is this correct? And they confirmed, oh, yes, the reason why I didn't go to class was because I didn't get any courses approved. So they confirmed that. Um, but our job at the study abroad office is we are required to report your study abroad grades to CSUF registration and records. So the failing grades were added to the student's CSUF transcript, and this did indeed lower their GPA, and it was right before their graduation. So although they were still able to graduate, but the grades remain on their record, and students are typically required to submit official transcripts if you're applying to um, like grad school, right? So now these grades are going to be reflected on their transcript, and it can definitely impact future plans, graduate school, other plans you may have. So again, just taking your study seriously while you're abroad. There is going to be time for you to travel, explore, but when it's time to go to class, turn in assignments, just like you do here, all of that still applies. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for participating on that. I just hope that we can all take something away from those experiences and just know that we are, at the end of the day, our team is here to support you as best as we can. But you will be independent abroad. We're not there at all times or at all. I wish we were there with you, but we're not there. So please keep safety in mind at all times. Academics are a priority. Pre and post program survey. So coming to the end here, be on the lookout. You will be receiving a link to a pre and post program survey. Um, and we just want to know more about your experience abroad. So we will be sending you a separate email with that link, just a heads up, so that you do complete it. We really appreciate all the submissions we can get. So before we go into breakout rooms, um, just if you have any questions, please feel free to email them to sabroad@fullerton.edu or myself, absegura@fullerton.edu. We do include our associate director's email here as well. Her name is Cherie Merrill, and you can also email